class, this is Professor King. I'm going to talk through Chapter 3 Lab with you today. We're going to start on the simple if worksheet for this Chapter 3 Lab because we worked on ifs in the Chapter 1 and 2 Lab a little bit, and so now we're going to practice it again working here in this worksheet. Let's take a look at the data on this worksheet and realize that there is quite a bit more data on this worksheet, 742 rows of data than on our previous worksheets that we've worked on. And let's just think about the fact that this is how Excel actually helps us when we're working in business. When we work for companies, when we work in the real world in business, it is very unlikely that we're going to deal with spreadsheets that have about this much data on them. We're going to deal with spreadsheets with rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of data. So being able to use these formulas and function in Excel begin to make sense when we start talking about them in business contexts. We've talked about before that if I only give you, 5 or 6 or 10 employees, and I ask you which one of these employees has worked here the longest, it doesn't take your brain very much time to be able to just look at that data and tell me. But if I have 100,000 rows, without some skills in Excel, that becomes a much more complex question. So that's what we're working towards this semester, being able to use Excel and spreadsheet modeling to answer business questions. So let's get started on some of those. This worksheet says, please indicate in column I whether or not the employee will receive a bonus. If employees receive a bonus, please put 3,000 in the bonus column. If they don't earn a bonus, please indicate 0. So the question is, how do you know? How do you know if employees get a bonus? Well, the second little paragraph here says employees will receive a bonus if they have a job rating greater than 3. And then it says, please indicate the total bonus to be paid in a total row at the bottom of the list. So here in this lab, what we're trying to figure out is, do the employees get a bonus? We know they do get a bonus if they have a job rating greater than 3. So again, like we talked about in the last lab, if I want to write an if statement or a lot of these different types of formulas in Excel, it helps if I can forget Excel for a minute and just say it in words. If I just say this in words and I were to ask you which employees get a bonus, and you would say employees with job ratings greater than 3. So I would say, so how do you know if employees get a bonus? You'd say if they have a job rating greater than 3. Those are the words that would come out of your mouth. That's really, really important when you're working in Excel to be able to contemplate that and even be able to write it down sometimes. So let's talk about Lisa Page, because she's the employee that's in the top row of our data. So we're just going to talk about her, and we're going to say equals if. And we're going to say Lisa Page is going to get a bonus if her job rating on the same row with her in row 2, job rating is greater than 3. We're going to be really careful because we're not going to put greater than or equal to 3. We could put greater than or equal to 4, but then we run the risk of there being data down that we can't see where they have job ratings of 3.5, or perhaps these job ratings are rounded to the nearest whole number and they're not really there. My advice to you when you're doing Excel and when you're working through these problems is to read exactly what it says. Job rating greater than 3 does not mean the same thing as 4 or more. So just pay attention to what's happening. So our logical test for our if statement, our first argument, is if the job rating, which happens to be in J2 for Lisa Page on this row, is greater than 3. We'll put a comma here. If that's true, we know Lisa is going to receive a $3,000 bonus. We'll type 3,000. If she doesn't have that job rating, she'll receive 0. So we'll type 0 and close the parentheses for the argument if false. Now, I want to point out something. I'm going to go back for a second. There are some times when we need to put text in these if statements. We need Excel to return words, not numbers. If we need it to return numbers, please remember you don't put it in quotation marks. Because if I put this in quotation marks, it's going to tell Excel that that's text and I'm not going to be able to add it. Well, I need a total row to tell me the whole total of bonuses to be paid. So text is not going to get me there. So make sure you just put them in as numbers. Also, a word of caution. It asks us to please put in 3,000, has a comma here in the instructions. It's your job to know in Excel that a comma means a change in argument. If you continue to put the comma in the 3,000, it will mess up your if statement. The statement will then tell you that you have too many arguments. I'll show you what I mean. If you put this and then you put the 0, when I hit enter, it says you've entered too many arguments for this function, because Excel thinks if J2 is greater than 3, you want me to give you a 3. If not, 3 zeros. And after that, it doesn't know what to do with the last 0. So that's too many arguments for the function. So be careful. Syntax matters. So now we know that Lisa Page gets a $3,000 bonus. Her job rating is 5. That makes sense. And double click on that and let it go all the way down. I should see that my employees that have job ratings of 3 do not get a bonus, but my 4s and my 5s do. Now, if I click on I can notice that the sum of all of these bonuses is $1,035,000. So if I just asked you what the total bonus was, you could tell me $1,035,000 just by clicking on the I and calculating the whole column. But I don't want to do that. I want to add a totals row. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift down and take me down to the end of my data. And I'm going to click in this cell at the bottom of the bonuses. And here I'm going to type equals sum. Click on the cell above it, hit Control-Shift up to capture everything at the top, and press enter, and you'll notice I get $1,035,000. I'll make it dollars. I'll take away the zeros because they're super confusing, the cents. I'll make it bold. I'll give it a top and a bottom double border, and I have it set, looks like dollars to me. Actually, I'm going to set this whole column to dollars and then make it look fancy. So here's my totals row. I could probably say total bonus or whatever I want to say. If I say total bonus, that'll indicate what that is, highlight it, however you feel like it needs to be treated. But that isn't all of that stuff, all of the formatting, all of the making the total stand out more, all of that. None of that isn't given in the instructions. It's still an important part of your worksheet. When you're working in real life spreadsheets, when you're working on projects, when you're out in your job and you're giving them to the boss, all of those things matter. So keep that in mind. Even though I'm not giving you step-by-step instructions, I still expect those things to happen. So there's that first simple if. The next sheet that we have going on is our lookups tab. We haven't worked with lookups yet. We have VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs that we've started talking about in class so far, but this is our first experience with them in lab. And they work very similar to the same way. A VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup and an HLOOKUP is a horizontal lookup. So you know whether to use a VLOOKUP if your data that you're looking for is in a vertical table, or a horizontal lookup if it is in a horizontal table, meaning the value that you know is going across or up and down. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Now, there are a lot of things that you have to know about a VLOOKUP and an HLOOKUP. We're going to talk largely here about the VLOOKUP, and I'll just show you the HLOOKUP quickly, but there are a lot of things about a VLOOKUP that you have to keep in mind. The first one is the VLOOKUP has several arguments. So we'll type VLOOKUP, open our parentheses, and take a look at these arguments. Arguments lookup value, table array, column index number, and range lookup. We need all 4 of them to make our lookup work, but what Excel is trying to do is it's trying to find something that we know, like this person's name, like Bree, something that we know, and find something that we don't know. So right now we don't know Bree's favorite animal, but we know her name. So we're going to try to find the favorite animal that belongs to Bree, and we're going to ask Excel to do it for us. Again, it's very, very simple in this example that we're looking at right now because there aren't thousands and thousands of rows of data. I can visually look right here and find out that Bree's favorite animal is an ostrich. I don't need Excel to look it up for me. I don't need anything. I can just look at this data and figure it out. But I want you to remember, there'll be other instances and other times where this data is not on this same not on the same worksheet. Could be even in a different workbook. I need to look somewhere else to be able to pull this data in, and I don't just want to copy and paste it. I want Excel to do the work for me. So that's what the purpose of this is for. The first argument in this VLOOKUP is what we call the lookup value. The lookup value is in the table where you're trying to get Excel to return additional information. So here, our lookup value is Bree. I want Excel to take Bree and find her name, look up her name somewhere else and tell me her favorite animal based on her name. So my lookup value is on the same tab in the same table array as what I'm looking in. So I want Excel to look up Bree. The next one's the table array. It says table array, where do you want me to find Bree so that I can then tell you her favorite animal? That's what Excel wants to know. Where can I find Bree? When we find Bree over here in this table array, we find names and we find favorite animals. And over here in this table array, we also find cities. Cities don't have to be selected for this particular one, but it won't hurt anything, so I'll leave it. So we have a table array. Now, it's very important to always remember to absolute reference your table array. I hit Command T. You can hit F4, function F4, or Command T, depending on the machine you're using, and be able to absolute reference that without typing those dollar signs. But you want to lock in that table array, because when I drag this down and look for Carvel and Chopper and Cristiano and Gemma's, all their favorite animals, I don't want this table array right here to move. I need it to stay right here. So I'm going to lock it in. Another thing I need to point out to you about the table array is that it must start on the leftmost side. It must start with the lookup values. So you see there's employee numbers here in this array where we could have found by employee number the favorite animal, but we have names. So our table array must start on the very left-hand side with the same information as our lookup value. Next, we have column index number. Our next argument is column index number. Column index number asks us which column of the table array, not the sheet, but of the table array, do you want me to give you back? So right now, we're looking at this table array and we're saying, look up Bree, and she's in column 1. And which column do you want to end up back in this cell? Well, we want favorite animal. So we don't want column 1, we want column 2. Our column index number is 2. Not the column of the sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not 10. There's only 3 columns in this table array. It's not 2 because it's the second column over here. It's 2 because it's the second column over here. So please bear that in mind. Our range lookup is our last argument. Our range lookup will either be true for an approximate match or false for an exact match. And so anytime we're looking up something like a name, we're going to want false. I want Bree and only Bree. And if Bree doesn't appear in the list, I want you to just tell me she's not there. Bree and only Bree. Don't give me Brent. Don't give me Brittany. Bree and only Bree's favorite animal. We'll hit enter and we'll have an ostrich. So again, we can copy this down just by double clicking on the fill handle because there is data to the left. Double click on Irvin's favorite animals. Tell you we're looking at Irvin. And we're looking for Irvin over here in this table array, and we want to pull the second column. So is Irvin's favorite animal a howler monkey? It is. We're good to go. Same with the city. Here it's going to be Vlookup. Excuse me. Vlookup. Our lookup value is again going to be the name of the person because that's what we're going to look up over here. So Bree again in this case because we're on her row. Our table array again is going to start with the names and go all the way to the cities. And we're going to use all 3 of these columns because our next argument, remember, is column index number. This time it is 1, 2, 3. I want column index number 3. And again, as I'm basing it on names, I want false or an exact match. Copy this down once again, and that brings us to number of dependents. Number of dependents is down here in this array. This array, the names that I'm looking for go horizontally or sideways. This one's not a VLOOKUP. This one's an HLOOKUP for a horizontal lookup. HLOOKUP has the same arguments as VLOOKUP. So again, lookup value is Bree. It's what I'm looking for down here in this table. My lookup value is going to be Bree. My table array is going to be right here and lock that in. My row index number. This one will get you because you can kind of reason your way through columns because they're not numbered, but logically students and people in general struggle with row number because row number, I want you to return row number 24. That's row number 24 right there. That's what I want you to spit back. But remember, it's either row 1 where the data is or row 2 here. So row 2. For this particular HLOOKUP, and again, a false or an exact match for range lookup. So that will give us the number of dependents. As we move through our labs, those are going to get much harder. That data will oftentimes be on other pages, so just bear that in mind. Now let's look at this creating charts page. Charts are very basic in Excel. They do some really cool things. As you move forward in your information management curriculum, you'll get to use things like Tableau and Power BI that have really cool, really dynamic charts. We're just going to get started here with some basic ones. This one says create a pie chart of home product sales, add data labels, and format appropriately. If you're working on a PC, your options are going to look a lot different than mine, and they're going to be much easier to follow. So again, I'm working on a Mac, so if your options don't look exactly like mine, please don't panic. It will be fine. So I'm going to select all of this data, and we're going to turn it into a pie chart. To do that, we're simply going to go to Insert tab and go over here and click on Two-Dimensional Pie Chart. Because I have the product names, the column headers selected, it will give me different options based on what I have selected. I really wanted my pie chart to say home product sales. I don't want it to say total though. So I can just double click in this just like any other Microsoft product and select total and tell it, no, I don't really want total. I just want it to say home product sales. And then we'll get home product sales, and all of these different items are related to a different color. If I want to add data labels as it requests, we go up to add chart element up in the ribbon, data labels. We can put them in a variety of places. If I put them in the center, they look really awkward because they're over top of all those colors. It's not really helpful. You can always default to best fit, and it will choose for you. That puts one inside its little pie chart and the rest of them on the outside. Again, not really a fan. So I'm going to put the data labels on the outside end, and that way it looks more uniform, and I like the way that looks. Next, we're going to create a clustered bar chart with the selected furniture sales by region. We're going to filter the data to only contain the media armoire and the bamboo. So this time, what we want to do is look at this data down here. There's something a little different about this data. Up here, all we had were totals, but they weren't really totals. What we want to avoid when we're making charts are grand totals. So you'll see we have grand totals over here in this column and grand totals at the bottom. We don't want those when we're creating charts because all they do is duplicate the information. So make sure when you're selecting your data to create charts that if you have grand totals, either in columns or in rows, that you ignore it. Here we're going to do a clustered bar chart, so we'll click on Insert, and we'll go over here to the bar charts. The bar charts and the column charts are in the same little drop down. You'll see columns go up and down, bar charts go sideways. Here we'll select clustered bar chart. It asks us to format it appropriately, so we're going to change this chart title here to say selected furniture by region. And we're going to make sure that we have the appropriate title. So we'll close this little format bar. And now we have all of our items, all of our products over here, and all of our regions here. Well, we want to see products by region, but there's something else that it asked us to do. It asked us to filter the data to only contain media armoire and bamboo furniture. So if we're on a PC, this is really easy. So you click on the chart, and there are three little buttons that appear right here. One of them looks like the filter, like a funnel. You click on it, and you can filter out the data. We don't get so lucky when we're on a Mac. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the Select Data. We're in Chart Design tab, Select Data. When we get this Select Data, we're going to remember that we're not trying to exclude any regions here. We're trying to exclude products. So in order to exclude products, we're going to have to switch these rows and columns around. So we can click on Captain Recliner and push minus to get rid of it. Click on Chameleon Couch and push minus to get rid of it. And then we're going to say, okay, you'll notice as soon as I do that, my regions are now on the left and my items are now on the right. That's not the way I wanted to look at my table that we had talked about. So I'll just go back up to the ribbon and hit switch row and column again and get back to where I wanted to be with this chart. So you can see there's a lot of options to be able to play with charts. There's a lot of different formats that you can use. You can click through, you can pick themes, you can change colors. If I go over here to the change color option, I can select just a variety of different things. Anything that I really want to make my chart stand out. So you can play with it. as you want and make them look really good. Lastly, today we're going to talk about combo charts. And combo charts have gotten significantly easier in Excel as we progress to Excel 2019. Some of you are going to have a combo chart button. Some of you will not. So we've been building combo charts for a long time. Combo charts have secondary axes, and they provide very much useful information on dual axes. So they're really very helpful. So let's learn the way that it's going to work for all of us to create this combo chart. So it says, please create a combo chart with columns and lines on a secondary axis showing months, clicks, and dollars per click. Please change the formatting to different color, add the appropriate titles and features. Be sure to create a secondary axis for dollars per click. So we know that we need month. I would recommend that you always capture these titles. It will help you. It'll keep it from saying Series 1 and Series 2. We also need clicks and dollars per click. All I did was hold down Command and move my mouse and select multiple fields of data. Again, if you don't have a mouse, you should get one, but Command or Control, either way, to make multiple non-contiguous selections. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to Insert. When I insert this, what I'm going to want to do, I'm going to pick a clustered column chart. And I'm just going to pick the first one that pops up. Again, some of you are going to, if I go back, you're going to have this combo chart option. If you do, that's awesome. You can click this one. It'll do it for you. But we're going to learn this the hard way. So I'm going to select column chart. And I'm going to notice when I select column chart that my chart, I'm trying to make it bigger here. Hang on. So I notice that my chart goes all the way up in the 500s of thousands for these clicks, but the dollars per click are like way down here. So you see the dollars per click there, these pink or purple bars that are happening down here. Well, I want to make that into a line. So to do that, the easiest way to do it, I don't like trying to double click on these things. You can try. Actually, you probably should try to click on them. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get the axes, but that's okay. We need it to pop up over here anyway. So just go ahead and double click and we'll get this format axis option up over here. But we've got something else we have to do first. Click on the Format tab to format your chart, and over on the left-hand side, you're going to have this drop-down menu where you can drop down and you're going to say, I want the series dollar per click. When you do that, Excel is going to highlight just the pieces of the chart that you want. You can then tell it, I need those on a secondary axis. It's going to pop up over here in your Format Data Series. I need those in a secondary axis. Now we have multiple bars, but they overlap, and that's not necessarily what we want to do. So while we have this data and only this data selected, we're going to go over here to Change Chart Type and say, nope, give me a line. So again, I'll undo that real quick. And I just went over here when I had these dual bars and I went to Change Chart Type and I said, no, I don't want bars for that secondary axis. I'll take a two-dimensional line and click on it. And then you have your axis and your line graph for your secondary axis. We're going to change this to click data per month and call it a combo chart. It's beautiful. So the last thing says, the bonus says, please create a pie chart showing months and total spend. So I'll show you how to do that. You just select months and hold down Command or Control, and you're going to go over to total spend. Again, it's as simple as insert pie chart, and you get this lovely little pie chart that gives you the total spend based on the months, and you can go up and add chart elements such as data labels to the outside ends that will then tell you which month has that. We can add the chart element of the legend, and we can, let's see, what else can we do? Legend to the right if I want to move it over there. I can do all kinds of things. Back to this one, it asked us to change the color. So again, we can go up here to color and just switch the colors to anything that we want. That one's green, I know, because I can't see it, so I'll stick with orange. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Please come by office hours for me or the GTAs if you have questions.